morning, good afternoon, good evening. I've got Mr. Edward Zia, an influencer, an international coach. He's been inspiring so many people, including myself. I just want to be a better version every time I see what he shares. So today, I want us to learn from him. I want us to celebrate him. And so before we go into detail with all the funny questions that I have for him, I just want to welcome him and just ask how Mr. Zia is today. How are you today?
Oh, I'm great, Agnes, and thank you for bringing me on your show. I'm actually really happy I was able to get home in time. I've been running around in the CBD. I've been buying dinner, picking up children from childcare, feeding them. So it's because of God I actually made it on time. So I'm really happy I just made it on time to be with you and your fans.
Oh, no, this is perfect timing. Everything works good for those that believe. And thank you so much for joining me. So as I've said, you are an international coach. You are inspiring others, always uplifting. Like every day, I see that you are inspiring people. You are uplifting people. But I want to know a bit about yourself. Before we go into detail, who's Mr. Zia? Just a quick biography of who you are.
Oh, I was actually thinking about this the other day. How do I describe myself? So, yeah, pretty much I'm a family guy, married to a wonderful lassie, got 2 kids. I spend a lot of my days either all day on LinkedIn or running around in the city meeting people. I'm off to Canberra tomorrow to run one of our face-to-face meetups. So I spend a lot of my time inspiring people, running, training events, running networking events. And since the, lockdowns and restrictions have eased, I've been spending a lot of time traveling to events as well and meeting people face to face. So yeah, I suppose in a nutshell, I spend my time, inspiring people, teaching people how to be influencers, and also connecting people via our business network.
Yes, I've seen that. Like every time I open Facebook, and I need to scroll down and every day I'm looking forward to your post that I just need to get that, message of hope every day, every morning, whether it's on LinkedIn, on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter these days as well. So you are everywhere, always uplifting people. So thank you so much for that. So first outing after the lockdown, right? Traveling to Canberra.
Yeah, so traveling to Canberra, I've been busy losing all my lockdown weight. I'm halfway through. I've got another 4 or 5 kilos to go. I've got my tan back. So now I'm basically in full on running around like there's no lockdown, forgetting everything that's happened. So yeah, it's been really good. I suppose coming out of because we had 100-day plus lockdown in Sydney, which is appalling, of course. And coming out of lockdown has made me really look at face-to-face differently. I took face-to-face for granted. And now that all the face-to-face events are back, I'm actually realizing how powerful face-to-face is. So that's been a bit of I suppose you would say, a re-education, a reaffirmation lesson that I've been personally going through, which has got me thinking about a lot of different things.
Yeah. It makes us appreciate so much the human connection, doesn't it?
Yeah, and the way I describe Zoom, I've discovered a funny way of describing Zoom, right? And a lot of people love this response. When you use Zoom for a meeting, it's like Diet Coke, right? It's basically it. It's still Coke, as it's still a meeting, but it's just not as good as real Coke. So while Zoom is great, because at the end of the day, you're in Melbourne, I'm in Sydney, so we couldn't meet any other way, nothing beats face-to-face. So I think Zoom's Diet Coke, where meeting someone face-to-face is the full-on, 100, 200 calorie soft drink that we all love.
So tell me, Edward, your old days, like before you became an influencer, tell me, maybe we'll start from high school. Like you grew up in Sydney. Where did you go to high school and, going into your sort of professional career?
Yeah, well, probably, I'm from Melbourne originally. I don't know if I told you, I'm actually from Melbourne originally. And I had a bit of an unfortunate childhood, right? An unfortunate childhood. Basically, I was in due to cancer, my own family broke down. So I actually spent a bit of time in the foster system. So I had a very sort of troubled growing up period. So I spent quite a few years in the foster system, living in between different places, spent a bit of time homeless as a teenager as well. And basically had a very troubled sort of youth. And what actually happened was, I ended up reuniting with my parents later on, which was good. But the bit that was interesting is that my life just wasn't working out for me when I was a teenager. And I was sitting at high school one day and the army recruiter came along. I don't know if you've seen this before, but what's quite common, I don't know if I'm sure it still happens now, but you have like the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force recruiters. They always go to local high schools telling you how awesome the Army is. And I was like, they were like, oh my God, you can go away. We pay for everything. You can sign up. You get 3 meals a day. And it's sort of like, it's been a while since I've eaten 3 meals a day. This is awesome. So I was like, get me the hell out of here. So I remember having one of these sweet talking Army recruiters come to our high school. And long story short, condensing a few events, I ended up joining the Army, right? A few other storylines, but I ended up joining the Army. And it was awesome. I managed to sort of, in a way, reboot my whole life. And so it was really good. I joined the Army. And I was very lucky to get seconded to doing drug enforcement. So I basically got yanked out of the Army and stuck into a federal policing type of drug enforcement role. So basically, I remember I was like 20 years old. And I thought, and in my own little immature male head, I thought I was James Bond, right? I used to have I used to be armed. I used to do crazy. And so in my own little head, I was like, basically, Pierce, at the time, James Bond was played by Pierce Brosnan. So I was sort of living out my own fantasy. And what happened was, like all fantasies, they all come crashing to an end. I almost got killed on a bad assignment. And I started my life again. I ended up actually going to uni. Government was actually quite good to me. They helped me pay for that. I ended up going to uni. And actually ended up working for a chemical supplier that supplied chemicals to the military. So I went straight. I was very lucky to find a really good job that sort of dovetailed with my military policing experience. And anyway, I did that. And I just fell in love with marketing over the years. Fell in love with marketing, had a few more ups and downs. Ended up winding up a homeless veteran after a few years. The PTSD caught up with me. Then I came to Sydney to start my life again. And 10 years later, 10, 11, 12 years later, here I am. I used to live in my car about 10, 12 years ago. Now I'm this big international influencer. It's been good turnaround, good turn of fortion I've had. And I praise
good
Jesus
turnaround. Yeah, good turnaround. Like I would want somebody who's in a situation like going back, seeing that you grew up in foster places. But I usually see those things in the movies, and I see these ads where they're asking parents to be foster parents. Can you tell me a bit about that experience? Like, how would you describe you being away from your parents during that period?
Look, it was a very it was a very numbing sort of experience. I suppose I kind of shut down emotionally. Even though these days I'm quite extroverted and quite talkative, there was probably a time there where I really kept to myself. I didn't really talk to anyone. Never let anyone in. And I think for me, I was quite numb from the whole experience. I think in a way I was, even to this day, right? You're sort of processing a lot of hurt, rejection, and abandonment. And I think I never actually processed it. I never really sat down and thought about. I always kept myself busy. I was always up to something, always kept on the move. So I never ever sat down until later in life. I never really sat down and actually processed what I was feeling. And that was good. Like, I was in some great foster homes. I was in some not so good foster homes. I was in some halfway houses at some point, which, in a way is like going to prison. And it was a very interesting experience. And what was interesting through all that is later on in life, I met up with a lot of people who are in the foster system, and the foster system is very much the opinion. And I could be wrong on this. This is at least the view that I formed. The foster system can be very much. It's a bit like drawing a ticket. You either have a good experience or a bad experience. Like some people do really well in the foster system, and they say, "Oh, I was in this foster family. It was great. They're my real parents today." Mine was sort of like going through prison, so I had more of the prison experience, and so what was sort of tragic about it is by the time I was 18, I already had my nose broken multiple times, and I was actually quite a good fighter. And just out of pure experience, I was in so many fights for various reasons. And
that's in these different homes, is it?
Yeah. Look, one of the core problems is that, and this still happens today, by the way. I actually spoke to someone recently and said it. When you're going through the foster system, the foster kids are always the targets at school. So whenever you go to a new school, if they find out you're a foster kid, all the bullies go after you because they know you've got no backup, right? They know you're a soft target, right? And it's a bit like prison. I've never been to prison, but just from the movies, I guess. But it's a bit like prison because when you go to a new school, very quickly you're going to get accosted by the bully, right? And if you get beaten up by the bully, you kind of, I hate to say it, you become the bitch, so to speak, right? But if you beat up the bully, or at least put up a good fight, people leave you alone. So it's all about respect. So whenever I went to a new school, it's a bit like going to prison. You're sort of like, after a while, you become, I suppose, institutionalized. You're sort of like, all right, where's the bully? I better take him down. So it was kind of tragic, actually, because by the time I was 18, it was already like, I've kind of lived a life that, a lot of people don't live. But it suited me for the military, though, because when I arrived in the military, I was like, oh my God, 3 meals a day. This is, and I wasn't the only one. Oh my God, 3 meals a day. This is awesome. It was just like, a lot of people in the military is like, oh my God, this is so hard. I'm like, what are you talking about? This is great. So it was a weird experience. And it was interesting. I met a lot of other foster kids in the military that shared my views saying, oh my God, the military is awesome. Well, I wish I could have joined this when I was 15. So it's interesting going through that whole experience.
It is interesting. And I would want somebody who's living in foster homes right now to see this, to see where you are and who you've actually turned out to be, despite everything that you went through, to be this famous, international coach, actually looking after others and inspiring others. So it's quite interesting. So you did tell me that you ended up finding your parents. How did that happen? How was that experience?
Look, it was very, so long story short, later in life, I ended up, my parents actually, got back to, so my mum survived cancer, parents got back together and all that. And probably, sort of, I suppose, just condensing the story, I kind of reunited with my parents in my mid-20s, right, roughly, give or take, in my mid-20s. So I actually reconciled with my parents. My parents actually apologized, which really blew me away. They actually said, look, we're sorry for what we did to you. That was, and I forgave them. It was very tough for me. So in my sort of mid to late 20s, we actually reconciled with my parents, right, which is really, really good. I was always wanted to reconcile with them on that issue, right? And about then is when I converted to Christianity. So I found Jesus when I was about that time. I found Jesus. I converted to Christianity from an Islamic background. And so I found Jesus and I actually just changed my whole life, which was really good. So then I really got into prayer and it's been really good. So I did the whole, I suppose, found Jesus in my mid-20s and did the whole God thing. So it was really good. So there you go.
And you are still doing the God thing, right?
Big time. I even have Christian on my LinkedIn profile, so I can't. I suppose I don't know. At least I don't know if I'm the best Christian out there. I am a bit of a sinner, but at least I like to. I'm not a very good Christian, but I like to call myself a Christian. So
no, you are. You are, and we are all sinners. We are just at the mercy of God every day. Whatever we do, we always have to go back and say, God, I think I didn't do you right at this period. But you know what I'm surprised about is I know the Muslim background with us Africans, our values and our traditions are very similar.
Yeah.
In that, marriages, we try by all means to stick together with parents. I mean, especially for the sake of children, our values are very respectful. I'm just surprised how that didn't work out in your Muslim, values as a family, where you sort of lost touch with your parents. I'm glad that you've actually reconciled anyway.
Yeah, and I think it was. And by the way, I think there's a lot of people are going to hate this. I get along great with Muslims. I think there's a lot of similarities between Islam and Christianity. And look, I think it was nothing to do with religion. Actually, I think it was more just. And I don't blame my parents for this. Look, again, I don't want to go too much into the story, but my mom got terminal cancer, right? And she survived. She's actually around today. I was actually speaking to her today over email. She's pissed off at me about something minor, right? So there you go. So she's very normal and very alive today, but she had terminal cancer. She wasn't meant to be around. And that, in a way, that her terminal cancer led to an unfortunate chain of events that resulted in me, being a homeless kid, right? So yeah, I don't think it's nothing to do with religion. It was more a matter of, in terms of my faith, I was just a bit of an office cat. And, and I ended up just naturally flocking towards Christianity and Jesus, just naturally moved that way. To be honest with you, I dated a few Christian girls and that kind of got me that way. So I met a lot of Muslim men and who are now Christians. And a lot of them, when you actually really ask them, so what made you convert to Christianity? All right, I met a hot Christian chick. It's always about that. So a few Christian women sort of lured me in the direction of Jesus. You know what I'm saying? So
That's good. That's very good to hear.
yeah. So it's always
I'm very
always the Christian women that lure the Muslim men away. And I'm not the first one to say that. So it's okay.
well, it's good. I believe it's just a different name and different beliefs. I believe we all pray to the same God. I've been to very different churches. Like, even I've got friends who are Muslim and they've tried to explain to me. I've also explained to them like what I believe in. We sort of meet in the middle. We all believe to the higher being who is at the end is God for all of us. So
and on that point, just to be clear with the audience, I couldn't agree with you more. I share a complete interfaith point of view. So at the end of the day, and not everyone likes this viewpoint, but this is my viewpoint, which I share with you. I say we're all worshiping the same God in our own unique way. So why can't we all get along? That's my argument.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm totally in the interfaith camp, completely in the interfaith camp on that one.
Wow. No, that's very inspiring to hear about your background, Melbourne, homeless Christianity, and see where you are today. The army. So you got discharged from the army, but you told me of an experience where, something almost happened. Tell me about that experience. What happened?
Well, so basically when I was in the government, so I was long story without boring everyone the details. So I was in the Australian Army, but I was seconded to work in drug enforcement, which happens all the time, right? It's very normal for whatever reason, you could be doing this one role and you get moved over here in the government. It happens, very normal, secondments. And basically, without giving away any private details, basically I got injured on a drug sting, right? Basically got injured on a drug sting. But when I say injured, as in almost killed injured, right? So I was in a coma, almost died. And I ended up getting a really bad case. To this day, it haunts me. A really bad case of PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder, right? And it's and that was a bit of a problem. And now I'm not blaming. And I just want to be clear. I'm not blaming the government for this, because a lot of veterans do, and I'm not doing that, albeit I could. But what happened to me was the government. When I was injured, the government was very good at sort of patching me up. They even gave me a bit of money to help me sort of reboot my life. But in a way, what happened was once the short-term stuff was done, it was like, all right, you're gone, you cut loose, go do your thing. And I know you're from the health industry, and you know where my story is going, right?
Yeah.
You know exactly where my story is going. And so I went off, and I actually had quite a successful corporate career. I actually did really well. And I went off, but what happened was the PTSD kept getting worse and worse. And
so it keeps coming back in your mind. It keeps coming back to eat you, and you relive that moment. Sometimes even nightmares, you can actually see it.
And what it was, when I was about 29, 30, basically it all got the better of me. And, again, it was a mixture of the PTSD coming back, plus a stack of bad decisions on my part, right? But basically the whole chain of events led to me, I was always afraid of being a homeless veteran, and I wound up being a homeless veteran, right? And I was like I was 29 at the time. And I was like, what the hell? Like,
what happened?
I used to be this cool 20-year-old, and I used to be like this marketing manager, and I had like 6 figures, and I had all these nice suits and shit. It's like, what the hell? Like, But what I did though, and this is the bit that I think you'll like and a lot of our listeners will like, is I took a very Christian view of my situation. So I thought there's kind of 2 ways I can go on this one. I thought I kind of went down this very spiritual monk sort of path, right? It was actually quite cool, actually, in hindsight. I went down this whole, well, you know what? Jesus wants me here, and there must be a purpose to it. So I went down this. So I became a bit of a monk, actually.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I became a bit of a monk. It was quite weird, actually. Became a bit of a monk. And as I was homeless, I entered this real, it's kind of cool, actually. It's kind of really zen and spiritual about it. Like, if you said to me at the time, why are you homeless? Because the Lord wants me here. It was very much, I felt it was a bit like a monk, right? And anyway, what happened was, even though I was a homeless guy, I kind of made a lot of friends, and I kind of became a bit of a counselor, because, I would have people who are earning, 6 figures take advice from me, the homeless guy living on the beach, right? And I kind of realized, I'm actually quite good at this sort of thing. And then someone mentioned to me, Ed, you should become like a coach in charge for this. And I'm like, oh, that'll be like so cool. I could like make heaps of money and shit and get out. And so long story short, so what I did was I actually thought about that, and I ended up finally getting a few crappy jobs just to make some money. And then what I actually got a few good work contracts too, which is good. I actually got a few decent temporary jobs. And I was able to get enough money together to do my coaching certification. Then I started as a coach and just slowly bubbled along from there, which is really good.
And how long ago was that?
So I'm now 43. Actually, it was about 14 years ago, come to think of it, 14 years ago. So I'm 43 as I sit here. I'm getting old now. And it was 29. It's about, I would say about 14 years ago.
Yeah, I do know at that time, I think the coaching wasn't as popular as it is today. Like today, everyone is a coach, not in a bad way, but 14 years ago, that wasn't even 10 years ago. It wasn't that popular. That was not very common.
What was interesting though is I think you're right, actually. I think what the coaching industry did, so you're right, at the time, a lot of people were going into coaching. Then what happened, pre-pandemic coaching hit a peak. Now coaching's really retracing. So I know, for example, the pandemic got rid of a lot of coaches, right? A lot of people disappeared from coaching during the pandemic.
I thought that's when they've actually now come vicious, like online, like you should see my inbox, like everyone wants to coach you. So, I think during the pandemic, I don't know, or maybe because I've just become so active on LinkedIn, maybe now.
I think what happened, by the way, you could be right. I don't actually know, but I think what might have happened, you might be right, by the way, I could be wrong. But what I think happened was that a lot of people try it, but then they don't get anywhere. I think that's what happened. So a lot of people try it or were trying it, but then they eventually gave up, because the problem, and I say this with tragedy, I don't like this, but most people don't succeed as coaches. They try it for a month or two and they just don't get anywhere. Then they quit and go into something else, right? So very, very few people actually become successful coaches, because most people don't actually stick out, like anything, like any business, I think. I remember, and I say this, I don't say this with ego, like I'm awesome. I say this with tragedy, but when I did my coaching certification about 12 years ago, it was a bit like probably about 12 years ago. Yeah, about 12 years ago, 12, 13 years ago, 12, 11 years ago, something like that. I remember that out of my class of about 35 people, I was the only guy who went full time, right? And to the point where the owner of the academy, Sharon Pearson, nice. A lot of people don't like it, but I liked it. But the woman by the name of Sharon Pearson actually interviewed me and said, Ed, you're like the only guy who's gone full time in this class. And she's a very, she was like, I hate this. I don't want this. I want more people to go full time. And it was interesting. But nothing's changed. So I find so many people do coaching courses, but very few actually build businesses out of it. Very few do that. Because I think at the end of the day, being a good coach is one thing, but as you know, you're a business lady yourself, having the fortitude to run a business is something else.
So tell me, how did you start slowly? Like, obviously, out of the 35, you are the only male who took this full time. What have you done right?
I think what it was that what I immediately started doing was I got straight into a lot of business networking events. So I started going to a lot of business networking breakfasts, and what invariably happened was very quickly they'd always say, Ed, do you want to join our team? So of whatever business network I'd go to, very quickly people would say, Ed, do you want to volunteer and join the team? And I go, okay, it's good. So I would always, and before long, I was running my own, within other people's business networks, I was running a lot of business breakfasts and that sort of thing, right? And actually got a lot of clients from that, right? Got a lot of clients from that, really built my reputation. And then eventually what happened was I got into running my own events as well. So long story short, I did a lot of business chamber events, which are good, but I like business chambers. They're not really around though post-pandemic, pre-pandemic, they were quite good. Did a lot of business chambers, did a lot of business breakfasts, but then where I did well was I started running my own events. So probably about 2 years before the pandemic, I started running my own meetup. So it was really good. I went from being part of other people's events to running my own events. And now these days with Wonderful Lassie, we run our own networking organizations. That's been really good. So that's been really good. So I suppose in hindsight, I became a master of business networking, which is how I got on my clients originally. And that was before I took off on LinkedIn. So these days it's different. Now I'm a big shot on LinkedIn and all that. But at that time, it was actually all the business networking I was doing that actually made my business work.
So tell me, I know you are an international coach. I've been to most of your events.
Oh, thank you.
Not these days. I've just been.
Oh, and thank you.
I will catch up. I will catch up. I promise.
And we love having you with us. Thank you. It's an honor.
I will catch up. Yeah. So tell me exactly what you do, because you've got different businesses, or different marketing businesses. So what exactly do you do?
Yeah. So the simple answer, I do two things, right? So I'm an influencer coach, so I help people become influencers, right? And the second part of it is I run a business network, and they kind of come together. So when I work with people, it's a matter of teaching them how to become influencers plus plugging them into our business network so they have all the right people to help them get there. And that's pretty much it, you know, and everyone's different. Some people more come to me for the mentoring, like, hey, Ed, can you teach me how to become an influencer? Can you coach me on LinkedIn or whatever? Whereas some people actually, Ed, I don't care about your coaching, don't care. I'm just here for your legendary business network, and everyone else in between. So I get people who just, they don't even, some people don't even think I'm a very good coach. They think I'm a really good business networker, which is why they work with me. Where some people are like, Ed, I hate the networking. You're just the best coach ever. Okay, at the end of the day, they're all paying me money. So, you know, if you want me to wash your car or do your laundry, no problem, you know, so it's fine.
Oh, perfect. Well, no, you are a big shot. And as I said, I can't wait to meet you face to face when you come to Melbourne. So now tell me about LinkedIn. When did you fall in love with LinkedIn?
Yeah, that was the start of 2019, actually. So what happened was, long story short, I used to use a lot of Facebook in those, when Facebook was actually a decent platform. I used to and Facebook for a while had been deteriorating. One of my very good friends, Rana Kordari, so big shout out to Rana, I owe one for this one. She actually said, Ed, what the hell are you doing? You got to get off this Facebook stuff and get in the LinkedIn. And my response was, but isn't LinkedIn more of an online resume? And in a way, Rana
yeah, that's what I thought as well initially.
Exactly. In a way, Rana metaphorically basically grabbed me, slapped me in the face a few times, and punched me in the stomach and said, oh, no, Ed, it's now this and that. And I'm like, really? Okay. So what happened was she persuaded me into getting into LinkedIn. And again, Rana Kordari, amazing lady, right? Amazing lady. She's anyway, a lot of people joke we look, she's like, but we're both Middle Eastern. A lot of people joke that we look like brother and sister. Like we got the same color skin and features. So a lot of people think we look like brother and sister. I'll
look out. Maybe she's already my connection, and she should be. The fact that she's I think she is.
Amazing lady. So if Rana, if you're listening, Rana, I owe you one. You're an amazing lady. Anyway, we kind of look like brother and sister, which a lot of people have joked about. And what was interesting about it was that, and correct to within 1 month, no, correction, within 2 weeks of using LinkedIn, I had grown more followers than the past 2 months on Facebook. And I already, like within 2 weeks of using LinkedIn, I was getting leads and clients, and I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. So I decided to I actually made the decision it was about February in 2019. So, you know what? I want to become a LinkedIn influencer. I want to go in this whole LinkedIn direction. And again, great, especially, with the pandemic coming, it turned out that was a good decision, right? Really good decision. And I just got right now. I just loved it. And then what happened was, Microsoft bought LinkedIn as well. So Microsoft made the platform better. And I just started, within about 3 months of using LinkedIn, people were calling, I never actually called myself an influencer. I never once said I'm an influencer. People were calling me an influencer. And I was getting all these customers, and I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome. And then when the pandemic hit, I was like, and be honest with you, if I didn't take off on LinkedIn, I would have lost my business in the pandemic. I was very lucky I got into LinkedIn before that, or I'd be screwed in pandemic. I would have probably shut down my business. And anyway, because I was already going on LinkedIn, that's how I got through the pandemic, and hence I'm here today.
Yeah, hence I made you. I've told you my story. I was sitting in my living room. I just finished watching this series. Like, what am I going to do now? For nothing to do, I don't want to start looking for another series. Then I was scrolling down on LinkedIn, and then I was like, anyone can join this? Let me give it a shot. And I pressed on the Zoom link, and there I was, full of these people. How did you get that idea to start the international Zoom network, the Thursday network meetings?
Yeah, so originally, so before I took off on LinkedIn, I used to run a lot of meetups across Sydney, right? So I've already been running events, and the pandemic forced the use of Zoom, right? So because at the end of the day, I started using Zoom, then what happened was, because it's Zoom, all these people from across the world started joining. And then it was like after 2 weeks going Zooms, I got my first American client. I'm like, oh, suppose I'm international now, doesn't it? I got my first American client. And then okay. Yeah. And then I added the word international on my profile, and all of a sudden, all these people from the Dubai, Middle East, Americas, Asia, Africa, all these people started signing up, and I was like, oh, we're like an international network now. This is really cool. And and it was just and what was interesting is that even though things started to open up again, even though I'm running face-to-face events again, the backbone of my business is now the Zoom. So then the way the business works is our face-to-face events are kind of like the bonus. It's actually the online stuff that drives everything. So it was I was already running networking events, but the pandemic forced me to go international. And that was a very good, unexpected, positive consequence of that.
Yeah. But I think for people that have been used to meetings and them, the pandemic sort of did work in their favor. For me as well, with the meetings that we used to do on Facebook last year and this year were actually similar, but in the health advocacy group, we meet people from all over the world. And so in some way, it's bad what's happening with the pandemic, but it's some way that has really worked for others. And I'm glad I met you through your initiative. So now where to with what's happening? What are your next initiatives? What's happening in the future? What are you planning on doing?
Yeah, well, in the here and now, and I was actually thinking about this on coming back from the city today, going, oh, where am I going with this? So, what it is that in the here and now, my big focus is to get all our now Australia's open up again, is get all my face-to-face events going really well again. So I'm actually spending a lot of time working on the face. So again, I'm off to Canberra tomorrow. I'm off to Melbourne to catch up with you guys soon, which I'm really pumped. I like Melbourne. And also get the stuff to Queensland. So I'm spending a lot of time getting the face-to-face events going. And the way I'm seeing it is my direction's kind of set. I know exactly what I'm doing. My own thinking is more, how can I grow faster? So, I'm always thinking about what better content I can put out. How can I make my events better? How can I reach more people? So for me, the direction's already set. What I'm doing, I love. It's how can I get there faster and help more people? That's sort of what's going through my mind right now. So question is, where do I see myself in 5 years? Doing the same thing, but huge. That's going to be my answer to you. How huge? I don't know. As huge as I can get it. We'll see what happens, shall we?
I am looking forward to that. And I'll be saying, like, I was here when we were saying 5 years, here we are, and we'll be looking at another 10 years after that. So you are really helping people like me, knowing the world. Like I've been using LinkedIn. I would say when I joined you, I think I joined you in August. Yeah. And I joined LinkedIn a long time ago. Then I had about 3,000, connections. I'm almost hitting 4, maybe close to 5, hopefully. Cool. If I play my cards right. I've just been very busy. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it. It's a lot of work. It's worth it. So hopefully.
And the way it works and this all platforms, be it whatever platform, the first 5,000 followers, the hardest followers you'll ever get, right? And sort of like, it's like all things. Once you cross 5,000 and 10,000 followers, like for example, I grow at least 1,000 followers a week now with ease, right? At least 1,000 followers a week. Whereas when I was 20,000 followers, I was probably growing 200 followers a week. So I think it's like that. It's a matter of, it's starting out, whatever bit, your LinkedIn, Facebook, Insta, whatever, starting out is always the hardest bit, always the hardest bit. And you're doing great. So power to you, Agnes.
Yeah, it's hard work, but as I said, it's worth it. But also the flip side of that is different, coaches and businesses. And I feel bad not to respond, but sometimes it's too much, especially if you are on your birthday. Like I can't manage to respond to everyone. My birthday was and I say this as a positive. Saying my birthday was an absolute disaster in terms of basically, probably I would say at least 2,000 messages. It was, and I say this with gratitude. It was positively nuts, right? But yeah, and Lassie had a similar experience too. Lassie, our birthdays are quite similar. So my birthday June 23rd, and Lassie had hers a few weeks later.
and both of us had. We took days. We in advance. We actually took days off just to catch up with all the messages. It was really good. So I actually took some time off over the birthdays. And it was really just.
It's a lot, but you meet a lot of people and different stories. They'll tell you stories, which is really good. Yeah. We are doing really good. I'm glad that we are almost over. But there's something that I wanted to ask you, a personal question. I don't know that anybody has asked you this question. Tell me about that birthmark.
Oh, it's birthmark.
That's your distinct mark.
Nothing too exciting, just a standard issue birthmark, born with it.
I just born with it.
Yes. Unfortunately, there's no interesting story. Like, I didn't get it from a drug dealer. I didn't get it on a battlefield. It's just a boring stock standard birthmark. So yeah, I should make up a better story than that. It's very uninspiring. It should have been like, I was beating up a bunch of drug dealers and one, I punched him in the face and a bunch of acid got me. No, it's just a birthmark born with it. Incredibly boring, my birthmark.
Okay. My daughter has a big one on her forehead.
What does she?
I think my mom says we burnt her with tea, because I like taking a lot of tea when I was pregnant with her. I don't know how true that is. So maybe your mom burnt you with tea.
And I've had a lot of people offer to remove it, right? I've had people for free offer to remove it, right? And my answer has been no, it is my birthmark. I'm not removing it.
You shouldn't, because that's what makes you. Remember when I saw the video game, the video games that you play, when I looked at the characters, I'm like, this looks very familiar.
Yeah,
this looks very your alter ego in one of your video games.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it's sort of like, it's like all that. It's I've had people for free say, Ed, I'll remove your birthmark, like people with cosmetic surgeons and that, and laser people. And I said, no, I don't want to do that. And it's a bit like this, like, even though I'm a Christian, I've still got my Islamic name. And quite a few Christians have actually said to me, and I disagree with this, by the way, Ed, you should change your name to a Christian name. And I'm like, screw you. No. It's like, I like my birthmark and I like my Islamic name, and boo-hoo. So I just like it. I'm not going to change it.
Which one is your Islamic name? Not Zia, is it?
I haven't told you my full name. Do you want to hear my full name?
Yes.
Yeah. So my actual full name is Edward Ahmed Ali Muhammad Zia. It's actually my full name. People don't know that. So Zia is actually a Quranic name. I think it's I could be wrong. Zia is like a prophet from the Quran. Like for example, I met a lot of people from Pakistan who are called Zia. So a lot of Pakistanis have the name Zia. It's very common in their names, right? So Zia is a prophet from the Quran. I think it is. Please, any Islamic scholars out there, I apologize. Please correct me. But Zia understands a prophet from the Quran. And but I just like my name. I like my birthmark and like my name, and I'm not going to change it. And I don't care. Sue me.
You shouldn't. That makes you like a unique you.
Yeah, I've had people say, change your name, lose a birthmark. No, I'm not going to do it. Yeah, I'm going to fold my arms and no.
Well, this was a lovely, lovely story. Very inspiring. I can't just believe like where you've come from and where you are, like being this international influencer, international change maker, can-do change maker. Yeah. And I'm so glad I met you. We do have people like right now who just like lost. They don't know what to do in life.
Yeah.
They feel like, where do I even start from? What message of hope do you give to those people? Like seeing what you've gone through and where you are today. If somebody's watching this and they've just, trying to give up in life, what message do you have for them?
Well, the first thing I say is go back to your spiritual foundations. So, for example, I have a lot of people who ask me this every day. People saying, basically approaching me for spiritual guidance, saying, look, Ed, I'm really lost in life. In fact, I actually got a message from someone I know on LinkedIn who said, Ed, after we finished, I'm going to reply to the guy. Ed, I got retrenched from my job 2 months ago. I don't know what to do with my life. What do you think I should do? I actually going to answer this afterwards. And I get asked this every day, quite a few times. And what I always say to people, part of my answer is go back to your spiritual foundations, whatever it is, right? If you're a Muslim, go back to your, go back to your mosque. If you're a Christian, dash off to your church. If you're a Jew, go to your synagogue. If you're an atheist, go to a bar or something and have a drink, right? Whatever you're into, right? But basically, I would say go back to your spiritual origins and really sit back and think through what you want to do with your life. Like, why are you here? Why are you on this planet? And where do you want to go with your life? And I think it's very important because when you go back to your spiritual foundations, that's where you can go really well. So a bit of a very quick story. I know we're a long time, but a Muslim friend of mine, about maybe 2 years ago, younger guy in his 20s, quite a good looking Muslim guy actually in his 20s. Ed, I'm just stuck in life. What do I do? And I actually told him I actually said, do you go to mosque? No, I don't. I actually told him to go to mosque. So I'm a Christian telling a guy to go to mosque, right? I said, look, go back to your mosque and speak to the cleric there and just tell the cleric the truth. Like, look, I'm a bit lost in life. What do you think? And that worked great for the guy. He got good direction. So I always say, go back to your spiritual heritage and foundation, because that's where I think you're going to find your answers, because the material world doesn't have the answers. Buying more stuff doesn't solve any problems. If it did, then why are Hollywood people so messed up? It just doesn't work, right? So I say, go back to your spiritual origins, because that's where you're going to find the true answers to work out where you're going in life.
Powerful, powerful message, Mr. Zia Edward. Sorry, I can't pronounce the Muslim name.
Even I can't. Even I have to think. Even I can't pronounce it. Even I have to stop and think for a second to get the pronunciation right. Even I can't pronounce my name. But don't ask me to write it. That's terrible. No. My Arabic's terrible. Don't ask me to write it. It's awful.
Well, thank you so much, Edward, for this. I am inspired every day with what you do, and I needed to celebrate you and just, for the people and millions of people that you are inspiring around the world. I'm glad we had this chat. And for anyone who can try to find you, just in case, it took me time to find you, almost, you're active almost 3 years on LinkedIn. I didn't find you. Where can they find you?
Oh, they can add me on LinkedIn. So if you want to add me on LinkedIn, just hit add. Oh, follow me. If you want to add me, just say Agnes is awesome. Otherwise, I won't accept your friend request. I'll just delete it. So if you say Agnes is awesome, I'll hit connect. If you don't, I won't hit connect. You got to say Agnes is awesome. That's the passphrase.
Yes, you heard that. You heard that. Come through me. I will connect you.
You don't say Agnes is awesome. I do not want to connect with you. But if you do, let's connect. If you think Agnes is awesome.
Well, please connect with Edward and join us to one of the meetings, like every Mondays and every Thursdays, but different states, almost every day of the week. Yeah. So are we going to still continue having the virtual ones after the lockdowns?
Absolutely. So just on that point, so the Monday and Thursday nights are all here to stay. They're for good. So Monday, Thursday nights, they're not going anywhere. They're actually awesome. And the face-to-faces are more the bonuses.
Yeah. So our day is Friday. So I'm going to do everything I can to meet up next week.
You'll love it. You'll love it. It's good.
Well, thank you, Edward. And everyone, thank you so much for joining me for this Can Do Change Makers interview series. I'll let you know who I'm going to have next, who's changing the world, inspiring the world. So stay tuned. But for now, keep safe and love one another. As Edward said, we all pray to the same God. Let us continue being nice to one another. And with that, I'll see you next time. Thank you.